Pero la verdad es que muchos de estos trabajadores agrícolas lecheros viven con miedo. Miedo de que en cualquier momento puedan ser separados de sus familias. Miedo de que mientras trabajan incansablemente para proveer a sus seres queridos, puedan ser deportados debido a su estatus migratorio.
Right now, many of those who have made the journey to the U.S. are living with the uncertainty of their future.
Que actúen cuando. Ahora.
Many are now relying on organizations like Capital District Latinos.
Capital District Latinos provides services around the social determinants of health, which is how people live their daily lives and how certain things affect them on an ongoing basis, such as healthcare, mental health services, nutrition, housing, transportation.
Over the years, CDL says that they have seen an increase of those needing their services, especially those coming from Latin America.
We provide warm clothing for many of the people who arrive here who don't know what it's like to live in, 20-degree weather.
With President Trump now back in office, organization leaders are coming together to not only make sure basic needs are met, but making sure this community knows their rights. Another organization in the front lines is Capital District Border Watch, which says they're now holding different workshops.
There are now ongoing efforts to hold Know Your Rights training for the migrants. Many of them are not aware of that everyone in this country has basic constitutional rights, and one of them is the right to remain silent.
Right now, there's a growing push for New York State lawmakers to do more to protect New Yorkers.
Are we ready to fight? Yeah! Are we ready to win? Yeah!
4 bills are now sitting at the state capitol. The first is the New York for All Act, which will prohibit all state and local agencies from cooperating with ICE and Customs Border and Protection. The second is the Dignity, Not Detention Act. That would end ICE's contracts with local jails and making sure New York State is not profiting off of ICE detention. The Access to Representative Act will create a right to counsel in New York State immigration courts and ensures funding for legal services. And Clemency Justice Act, which would protect New Yorkers facing exile due to the double punishment of the criminal and immigration legal systems.
New York State Legislature has a history of aligning itself with vulnerable communities. And I have confidence that the legislature will find a way in whatever, kind of framework that they have to work with, because it's not going to be easy. But New York State has a tradition of being that state that welcomes people.
A campaign promise by now President Donald Trump ordering sweeping deportations across the country. A political science professor says conducting that promise won't be easy.
It's the money, it's the logistical challenges, also just the number of ICE, which that's the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Agency, sometimes called ICE. You would have to hire, they said about, again, I think it's on about 30,000 new officers, as well as a number of new local officials too, because ICE oftentimes collaborates with local law enforcement as well.
If this were to happen, Ron says ICE will become the largest federal agency, displacing the FBI and Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosive Institute. He adds it's not only hiring more officers, but the price to deport those undocumented.
Estimates made by the American Immigration Institute say it would cost about $88 billion a year to deport 1 million people. It's probably going to be, this will be not a 1-year operation, it'd probably be a decade-long operation. We're talking about almost $1 trillion to do that. And that's detention facilities, maintaining detention facilities, processing asylum cases.
Even if 20% of people were to self-deport today, Ron says the cost to deport those who choose to stay will remain high. Another challenge the Trump administration will face would be knowing who to deport. While there's no registry of undocumented people in the U.S., experts say several families have mixed immigration status. During an interview with Meet the Press in December, President Trump promises to keep families together.
Well, I don't want to be breaking up families, so the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
Even kids who are here legally?
Well, what you going to do if they want to stay with the father? Look, we have to have rules and regulations.
And that's where the 14th Amendment comes to play. The amendment was ratified after the Civil War. It grants citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States and provides all citizens with equal protection under the laws. With a majority Trump-appointed Supreme Court, there's concerns Trump will try to challenge the 14th Amendment.
Trump has said on day one of the things he wants to do is issue an executive order to undo birthright citizenship. That is not how the law works. I do think that a lot of them believe in the law and believe in the stabilizing force of law. I think it would be hard for many of them to overturn 100 years of precedent.
Experts say Trump's promise of mass deportation will rely on the number of officers hired, if the U.S. can afford it, and finding out who is here illegally and not. For News Channel 13 Investigates, I'm Tamara Starr. As President Trump's immigration plan now begins to unfold, there's growing concerns over the economy.
Immigration, whether it's legal or illegal, are very useful for the economy.
Different workers and industries help to keep the economy flowing. An economist says simply removing a portion of the workforce will have a direct effect.
If you look logically at the situation, the economic consequences could be quite severe. People who are paying social security taxes, income taxes, right? All those funds would be affected.
Experts say that the U.S. relies on immigration to keep certain sectors alive. According to USA Facts, a not-for-profit initiative that makes government data easy for all, back in 2022, the construction industry had the highest share of immigrant workers. Not far behind was the services category, which includes jobs from automotive repairs and beauty salons. Experts say when destruction hits, such as a hurricane in the south or wildfires in California, the U.S. needs laborers, and at times a majority of those are undocumented people.
Think about it, how much South American Mexicans are there, right? And so the construction sector. Can you imagine if you try to restrict that inflow right now? What would be the consequences?
Aside from providing to the workforce, experts say these workers still provide for the economy by paying certain taxes. According to a political science professor, it's estimated undocumented people add about $11 billion to state localities. Simply trying to remove these workers would not only disrupt the flow, but experts say it will cost Americans in the long run.
The effect on the economy is something that's going to be very visible. And then you talk about this will be a big surge in federal spending at a time when we're still coming out of that inflationary spiral. So we could see, inflation go up.
As the nation enters this new unknown era of President Trump's mass deportation plan, experts say they'll keep an eye on how this unfolds. For News Channel 13 Investigates, I'm Tamara Starr.